It is July 1518. In the city of Strasbourg, a woman steps into the street and begins to dance. She does not stop. Not after an hour. Not after a day. According to historical chronicles, she danced for nearly a week straight, bleeding through her shoes, unable to rest, unable to explain why her body would not let her stop. Historians note that within a month, from 50 to 400 people joined her. Some of them danced until their hearts gave out. No one could explain it. Not the physicians, not the clergy, not the city council. And for 500 years, the dancing plague of 1518 has remained one of the most bizarre and disturbing mass events in recorded history. Welcome to Case Zero, where we investigate the cases that left doctors, historians, and scientists without answers. Today, we're going back to 1518, to a city under siege, not from an army, but from something no one could see, explain, or stop. This is the story of the dancing plague of Strasbourg. And the deeper you go into it, the stranger it gets. To understand what happened in Strasbourg, you have to understand what life looked like in 1518. The city sat along the Rhine River in what is now northeastern France. A prosperous trading hub, but one under enormous stress. According to historical records, the region had endured years of failed harvests, severe famine, and outbreaks of disease. Syphilis was spreading across Europe. Smallpox moved through villages with little warning. The Black Death, though its worst years were behind them, still lived in the cultural memory of everyone alive. Historians describe the population as existing in a state of chronic, unrelenting fear. The Catholic Church held enormous influence over daily life. People genuinely believed that sins could bring divine punishment, that God or saints could curse entire communities for moral failings. One saint in particular was deeply embedded in regional folklore, Saint Vitus. According to medieval belief, Saint Vitus had the power to curse sinners with uncontrollable dancing. The curse had a name, choreomania, and it was not considered metaphor. It was considered a real and documented spiritual threat. This is the world that Frau Troffea, the woman at the center of this story, woke up in on a morning in mid-July 1518. According to the most detailed historical accounts, it began without warning. Frau Troffea walked into a narrow street in Strasbourg and began to dance. She danced without music. She danced without apparent reason. Chronicles from the period note that her husband watched, horrified, as she continued through the afternoon and into the evening. By the end of the first week, historical records suggest that somewhere between 30 and 40 people had joined her. Each one beginning spontaneously, each one unable or unwilling to stop. City officials, according to municipal records that still exist today, initially believed that the dancing was a physical illness that could be cured through more movement. Their solution was to construct a stage, hire musicians, and encourage the dancers to continue, believing the affliction would exhaust itself. This decision, historians now believe, was catastrophic. Rather than burning out, the dancing spread. In August, the chronicles reported that the number of victims increased from 50 to 400 people. They danced in the streets, in the guild halls, and reportedly even inside churches. Several accounts from the period note that some dancers appeared to be in a trance-like state, eyes open, moving continuously but seemingly unaware of their surroundings. Physicians were summoned. According to surviving city records, they examined the dancers and ruled out supernatural causes. an unusually rational position for the era. Their official conclusion was that the dancing was caused by hot blood, a medical explanation consistent with humoral theory, the dominant medical framework of the time. Their prescribed treatment, more dancing. The dancing continued for approximately 2 months. Historical records are inconsistent on exact casualty numbers, but multiple contemporary accounts describe people dying from exhaustion, from heart failure, from stroke. Some chronicles put the number of deaths in the dozens. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. For centuries after 1518, the dancing plague resisted explanation. Medieval and Renaissance physicians had their theories: hot blood, demonic possession, divine punishment from Saint Vitus. The church organized processions to shrines. Clergy performed exorcisms. None of these interventions appeared to have any measurable effect on the progression of the event. What made the case uniquely difficult was its documentation. Unlike many strange historical events that exist only in rumor and legend, the dancing plague of 1518 left a paper trail. Surviving sources include a city council deliberation from August 1518, a physician's report, a sermon by a local pastor, and several letters exchanged between city officials, all confirming the basic facts of the event. Historians studying these documents in the centuries that followed found themselves facing the same question the Strasbourg City Council had faced in real time. What exactly were they looking at? The event did not fit neatly into any known medical or psychological category. It was too large to be individual psychosis. It was too organized to be random. It was too well documented to be dismissed as myth. And it was not unique. According to historical literature, similar outbreaks of mass, compulsive movement were recorded across medieval Europe. In 1374 along the Rhine, in 1375 in Liège, in 1381 in Augsburg. The 1518 Strasbourg outbreak was simply the best documented case. The question that researchers would eventually bring to this case was not just what happened, but why it happened here, why it happened then, and why it has never happened on this scale since. Modern researchers have proposed several competing explanations for the dancing plague of 1518. None of them is considered fully conclusive. The ergotism hypothesis suggests that the dancers may have consumed grain contaminated with ergot, a fungus that grows on rye and contains compounds chemically related to LSD. According to this theory, mass ergot poisoning could have produced hallucinations, muscle spasms, and altered states of consciousness consistent with the described behavior. Historians and medical researchers who have examined this theory note significant problems with it. Ergot poisoning typically produces convulsions, burning sensations, and gangrene, not sustained coordinated dancing. The ergotism hypothesis, while still cited, is not widely accepted by contemporary scholars as a sufficient explanation. The mass psychogenic illness hypothesis is currently the most supported explanation among historians and psychologists who study the case. According to this framework, developed in detail by historian John Waller, who published extensive research on the 1518 outbreak. The dancing plague was a form of mass hysteria triggered by extreme psychological stress. Under this theory, the dancers were not faking. They were genuinely unable to control their movements. Their bodies were expressing, through physical symptoms, the unbearable psychological and social pressures of their environment. Waller's research points to several factors that made Strasbourg in 1518 uniquely vulnerable. The preceding years of famine had created a population in a state of chronic trauma. The cultural belief in St. Vitus' curse meant that once one person began displaying unusual movement, for whatever reason, others had a ready-made framework to interpret and replicate the behavior. The city council's decision to provide musicians and a stage, according to this analysis, gave the event social legitimacy and inadvertently signaled that dancing was the appropriate response to whatever force was acting on the community. In essence, the community's own belief system may have created the conditions for the outbreak, sustained it, and determined its form. The dancing plague ended when the afflicted were taken to a shrine of St. Vitus in the mountains and subjected to religious rituals over several days. Whether the rituals themselves caused the cessation or whether the removal from Strasbourg broke the social feedback loop, historians cannot say with certainty. What modern researchers are more confident about is this: events like the dancing plague of 1518 are not relics of a superstitious past. Mass psychogenic illness is a documented medical phenomenon that continues to occur today. According to medical literature, outbreaks have been recorded in schools, factories, and communities throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, typically in environments characterized by high stress, closed social systems, and shared belief frameworks. The difference between 1518 and today is not that human beings have become immune to this kind of collective psychological event. The difference is that modern medicine can identify it faster, intervene earlier, and critically avoid the mistake the Strasbourg City Council made when they hired musicians and built a stage. The woman who started it all, Frau Troffea, disappears from historical records after the outbreak. We do not know what happened to her. We do not know if she survived. We know only that she stepped into a street one morning in July, began to move, and set in motion one of the strangest and most thoroughly documented events in the history of human behavior. The dancing plague of 1518 is a reminder that the human mind, under sufficient pressure, is capable of things that can look from the outside completely inexplicable. What do you think actually happened in Strasbourg? Was this mass psychogenic illness something environmental or something we still don't fully understand? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one. If this case fascinated you, subscribe to the channel and support us with a like. Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. All information presented is based on published historical records, academic research, and peer-reviewed literature. Viewer discretion is advised.